But politically, I don't know a lot of Americans who really have a problem with banning assault weapons. Unfortunately, assault weapons aren't really the problem because it's, unless you consider a semi-automatic weapon an assault weapon, which technically it isn't. And most of these crimes are actually committed with semi-automatic weapons. So the president's going out and talking about something that I think most people would say, like, yeah, why would a regular person need an assault weapon? That makes total sense. But it's not going to solve the problem. And I think universal background checks are another thing that are very important and that I think most people are receptive to that has a better chance of getting through Congress.
Let's play the other side of this equation, and then we'll get your thoughts on it, Tony. This is Chris Wallace on Sunday with Wayne LaPierre, the CEO of the NRA. Here's that.
The point of that ad was this. It wasn't picking on the president's kids.
It mentions them.
The president's kids are safe, and we're all thankful for it. The point of that ad...
They also face a threat that most children do not face.
Tell that to the people in Newtown. Tell that to the people...
You really think that the president's children are the same kind of target as every school child in America?
I think...
That's ridiculous, and you know it, sir.
Well, and that went on. Wayne LaPierre has made the argument that he thinks that universal background checks are anything but, and that criminals will never subject to them and will still be able to get guns. Tony, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it's obvious high-profile families are going to have much more attention paid to them, so their children are therefore at risk. It's a ridiculous argument to suggest that the president's kids perhaps are the same as everybody else's. We know that's not true. But what Wayne LaPierre said that I do think warrants a lot of consideration, especially when you remember that the NRA supported background checks, universal background checks 10 years ago, is you need the mental health lobby to join in this effort. You can't just have universal background checks and not modify the HIPAA laws to have mental health records computerized, centralized, so when you do cross-reference them, you can actually make sure you're not giving somebody who's mentally ill a gun.
That's a great point. I mean, I feel like that is the missing part of this conversation, Kirsten and Tony. I mean, you know, think specifically, because what you really want to do is think, go back to Newtown. How would you have prevented that from happening, right? His mother legally owned those guns. You know, there's a couple of things that could have intervened. His mother, there was some discussion that she wanted to commit him to an institution. Very, very difficult to do that. That's one thing that really needs to be addressed for a parent who clearly feels that their child is a violent member of society. And then the other issue is, you know, should she have the right to own those guns given the fact that she has an unstable child? Kirsten?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things going on here. I mean, when they refer to the mental health lobby, he was talking about universal background checks. That's not the same thing as being able to commit somebody, and I think that's a completely separate issue, and that's a legal issue. If the mental health lobby, is what he said, is causing problems, then they just need to be ignored. I mean, it's not, you know, the issue is the lawyers, like the ACLU, who make it difficult to commit people, and those are two completely different issues. I would say what could have prevented this crime in Newtown would have been if she had her guns in a safe, which is what responsible gun owners do. They keep their guns in a safe, locked away, or at a bare minimum in a closet, locked away. She had an unstable son. She should have had him in a safe. And there should be laws that state if you're going to own a gun, you know, keep it locked away. And if it's used in a crime, you're going to be held accountable. In this situation, she was unfortunately killed. But look, I mean, the idea that you just have guns laying around your house that anybody, I mean, someone could break into the house and steal it and use it in a crime.
Legal gun owners are by far the most focused on gun safety, and let's remember that fact. We can't malign a group of people who rightfully and legally...
I didn't just malign gun owners. Don't say that.
Kirsten, I'm not saying you are.
My family are responsible gun owners, and they keep their guns in a safe.
It's very easy, in the wake of a tragedy like this, to just want to do something. And while I think background checks are a good first step, the president, in his, I think, opinion on assault weapons is overreaching. You even saw that here in the state of New York, where a Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, rushed through an assault weapons ban, thinking in a liberal state it would be well received. His approval rating in a Quinnipiac poll just dropped 15 points because there are people who just don't think you automatically rush to judgment in matters like this. Where I do think you also have another problem, and Kirsten alluded to this before, is you have a Senate, including Harry Reid, that have 20% of Democrats have an A or B rating from the NRA. They don't want to go to a drastic route. So what you do have to do is have conversations that we're having. You can't ignore the HIPAA laws. Those are the privacy laws which are fully enforced, Kirsten. You need the mental health lobby involved.
And
if you want to talk about...
That's the most important thing here. It's what I call a violent cocktail, right? Well,
Yeah.
the problem is not guns in general. The problem is that when guns fall into the hands of people who are mentally deranged, which every single one of these situations involves, as you go across the board, why isn't that the focus of this conversation? We have to get to what really is the problem, and that is when guns are allowed to fall into the hands of people who are mentally unstable, mentally deranged, should never, ever have the access to that gun. It's a hard thing to nail down.
But that's what universal
that's the
background
problem.
checks are about, though, Martha. I mean, that's the point of universal background checks. We have more than 30 states in this country that don't have universal background checks. We have a patchwork of background checks, and so you can just drive into another state, across state lines, which is often like 20 minutes away for people, and get a gun without a background check. So we need universal background checks. We need it to be federal.
I agree with you.
That sounds like
Kirsten.
the most likely
and
legislation
instead, I
that
have
is
people
able to pass.
claiming you're maligning gun owners because you want to have background checks, or because
That's
you
not
think
at
they
all
should
what I
keep it
said.
in their state.
I don't think anybody said that.
I don't think anybody said that, Kirsten. Look, we actually agree, which is that, and I think even the majority of NRA owners agree, members rather. You do want universal background checks to make sure the information is in that to cross-reference that relate to mental health laws. And what are we not talking about, which Bill Clinton himself introduced after Columbine? How about securing our schools, securing malls, securing movie theaters, these soft targets where cowards with guns, mentally ill people who choose to then exact their anger on society with guns, they go to them because they know they're not protected. They know
I
they're
believe
not
that's
secure.
another really important issue here that for some reason does not seem to be
Totally
part of the
missing it, Martha.
legislation
He's totally missing
or
it.
part of the
Do I
conversation.
try to say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just about what you said about,
Make
Tony,
it
what
nice.
you're saying about the Senate, all these senators that, have these bad NRA ratings. And, I mean, that's part of the problem. I mean, you're sort of looking it out like they're reflecting public sentiment or something. They're afraid of the NRA. The NRA is going to bombard their districts if they do anything reasonable. And so you're presenting it like the NRA is so reasonable.
Their
And they're not
constituents are
reasonable.
pro-gun, not just
No,
the NRA.
they will not.
Tony, we gotta go.
Okay.
right,
So
Tony,
Montana
I'll
and
let you-
Alaska, those aren't
one
pro-gun
sentence.
states.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, you guys. We're going to talk more about this. Kirsten, thanks very much. Tony, good.